Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session of the Thesis Defense of St. Anthony College. Our presenter today is a seminarian of Provincial Missionaries, Nguyen back, and his thesis title is Aquinas' Notion of the Will as an Avenue to better understand religious vocation discernment. And we're pleased to, we are honored to hear the presence of his advisor, Professor Grace Marin Goy, and our principal critic, Professor Anton Venezuelan, and myself as critic too and a panel chair. We also have the presence of our thesis coordinator, Dr. Nandina, and we have one professor also, Lisa Paul. And so let us now start this thesis presentation. I'd like to call on Dot to start this presentation with a prayer.
Good afternoon, Father, sirs, mom, and all brothers. Before I present my thesis presentation, I would like all of us to pray the prayer for the vocation. In the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Gracious God, with grateful hearts, we welcome the presence of Jesus, our good shepherd. We accept the mission of Jesus to bring good news to the world by our baptismal commitment to gospel living. Bless us with discerning hearts. May we have the courage to give our lives to loving service, to marriage life, the single life, the consecrated life, and ordained life. Inspire men and women to respond generously and embrace the gift of our religious vocation. We unite our prayers with the whole church, with the communion of saints, with Jesus, and the Spirit in praise and thanksgiving now and forever. Amen. Once again, good afternoon, fathers, sirs, and all brothers. My thesis title is Aquinas' Notion of the Will as an Avenue to better understand religious vocation and discernment. First is the background of study. There are many people who do not live their life according to their will, or they want to avoid risks and difficulties in life. In the religious life as well, we can encounter many people join this kind of life, not following their wills, but because of first, security, second, fundamental problem, third is shame, fourth, and other expectation, and etc. This kind of life considers the freedom in choosing is as the most important element to live faithfully and persevere. Today, a number of congregations still have members who choose this kind of life based on other views, not their own views. This is the big issue of religious from the past until the present time. In the book of Summa Theologica of Thomas Aquinas, he has addressed this issue. The researcher found out that Aquinas' philosophy can help to demonstrate the role of the will in leading the human being to the ultimate end or root end. Hence, this leads the researcher to believe that the freedom in choosing is an inspiring religious main element for authentic discernment. So, in the situation of religious vocation discernment, freedom needs to be obtained for the better vocation discernment. Next is the significance of the study. In this paper, the researcher found out the five significance of significance is the first is to the universal church to support the teaching and practice of the church by the way correcting the view of free will and its connection the divine will. The second is to the religious men and women to provide for them a better understanding about their free will in the religious vocation discernment, so that they can have a better religious vocation no judgment to abstain daily life happiness. The third is to the candidates of the Christian congregation. Make clear understanding of the candidates about religious vocation, so that tradition will have all quality book members for the congregation. The fourth is to the future researchers to provide and emphasize on the importance of the will on man's choice, so that they will have more view about it. Lastly is to the researcher himself to know the importance and the true meaning of the free will. At this moment, he is the fourth year of the formation program, and at the same time, in the process of discerning to committing himself to the congregation and achieve the true happiness in his decision to be good religious. This study will help him not only in this stage, but also for his future life, where he desires to become who he is. It plays an important role in getting the satisfaction of life. Here is the conceptual framework of this thesis. The lowest oval is the situation of religious vocation. The highest oval is Apenas notion of the will. The middle oval is the intersectional between the lowest and the highest oval that represents the aim of researcher, which is an avenue to better understand religious vocation discernment. The lowest and also the darkest color because it represents the poor quality of religious vocation discernment. And the notion of Apenas put the highest and the brightest color among the three because it represents rational and intellectual freedom where people can totally free to create whom they want to become. The methodology of this study, the researcher tries to find out all the readings close to Apenas' writings to help him understand deeply Apenas' notion of the will. Besides that, he also uses analysis of other related sources to support his ideas in his thesis. Next is a statement of the problem. In this paper, the researcher will answer one main problem and two sub-problems. The first is the main problem is how can Apenas' notion of the will be an avenue to better understand religious vocation discernment? The sub-question one, what is religious vocation discernment? Subquestion 2. What is Apenas notion of the will? In the chapter 2, the theme is religious vocation discernment. In chapter 2 focuses on the religious vocation discernment. The researcher makes clear that what is religious life is purpose and figure out some elements such as other expectation, self-deception, compensation for dysfunctional family, desire for security, and dependent tendency, which researchers consider as bringing the freedom of one individual in choosing their vocation. This is the concept map of chapter 2. There is two main things the researcher tries to figure out. This first is religious vocation discernment, and the second is the problems in religious vocation discernment. In the chapter conclusion of chapter 2, the researcher will answer the question, what is religious vocation discernment? A religious vocation discernment is the process of the nourishment of candidates for the cause of God. It seems like one kind of seed that should be taken care of and enriching because the seed cannot bear fruit without nourishing. In the religious vocation as well, it needs a good and quality discernment so that it will bear good fruit. It is the process that demands the candidates must put more effort obtaining to gain the fruitful good. Chapter 3 is discussed about the Aquinas notion of the will. Chapter 3 focuses on the notion of the will, its act, and its function. The researcher tackles on the choice according to the reason and intellect of man. That is the distinction between man and other creatures. He points out that man is a rational animal, so that human being pursues the final end as a meaningful life. As Aquinas says, as the capacity of the will regards the divine soul and perfect good. In the chapter conclusion of chapter 3, the researcher will answer the sub-question to what is Aquinas' notion of the will. The notion of the will of Aquinas appears several times in his works. This notion uses technical language, rational appetite, to describe it, or the uses of a technical term that is rational appetite. So many readers fail to perceive it. The will here wants to explain it as the rational act that leads others to the desire for the human soul and good. He introduces this notion because he wants to distinguish between inclinations and rational appetite, or sense knowledge and intellectual knowledge. He believes that sense knowledge will lead to the external world information, and the intellect knowledge or rational appetite will lead us to the internal world information that Aquinas wants to emphasize as the monitor for one's inclinations. Hence, the one who uses rational appetite can control one's self and choose the correct desire that leads one's life to ultimate happiness. Therefore, he introduces this notion to make the people acknowledge one's freedom in choosing particular things among several alternative options. This is concept map of chapter 3. In the chapter 3, the researcher decided focus mainly on the notion of the will, but he also do exploring the notion of free will because the free will here is the act of the will. Without the free will, design of the will cannot reach the ultimate end. In chapter 4, the researcher will answer the main problem. How can Aquinas' notion of the will be an avenue to better understand the issues vocation discernment? In the views, in the view of this notion of Aquinas, the researcher, the religious vocation discernment has its foundation in the religious experience, wherein a person has an encounter that leads him to the dream of the divine, that calls him forth to a certain reality of life. Aquinas' way to achieving the generous vocation is through his own life after the process of listening to the call of the rational and intellectual appetite. This notion helps the listeners understand what is truly free and realize the obstacles that lie their freedom in choosing and accept who they are and take responsibilities for their choice in life. Through free will and responsibility of oneself that lead them overcome their attachments from the worldly things and taking back from what they truly are and put the importance on the commitment to the congregation and to God. For the conclusion of this thesis, first, focus on rational appetite or the will gives the listeners clear view about religious vocation so that they can live this kind of life more fruitful and quality. The religious people are defined as the life of connecting with God in fidelity, can realize that freedom in choosing is the highest requirement which they must have as free people. Freedom in choosing is the basic act of a rational creature, so that we must practice our ability to live meaningful and fruitful life according to our views. Therefore, the will is the most important element in the life of each one of us. It will lead human beings into the ultimate end, that is a truly desire of man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. I'd like to follow on our critique for this evaluation and later on this. Thank you for Brother, okay. Maybe we could go through the content. I was just wondering, maybe I have comments and questions together, so I'm doing it for chapter. Why did you explain the evangelical councils according to Aquinas? Because it seems that on the one hand, you're presenting the religious life, premised already on Aquinas' explanation. And on the other, you present in the following chapter Aquinas' discussion of the free will, of the will. So, why do you still need to explain the will if already Aquinas explains the evangelical counsel?
Because evangelical conscience is more focused on the theological way. But in the chapter 3, I explained the notion of the will. There is more about philosophical ideas from his ideas so that I can in, integrate these two of them become uh, theoretical and principle so that you can come up with the better view of the will.
You're saying we can separate the theological from the philosophical in Aquinas?
Some because somehow I saw because in the evangelical version is more inclined to the theological than the physical, and in the idea of the most of the view is more inclined to the physical because
So this is a question for later, but so that means God has no role in the idea of the free will for Aquinas. Are you working on that premise? That you will have no mention of God whatsoever? Because the idea of the free will for Aquinas is more philosophical. So God has no impact on that.
because this one is get from the idea of Aristotle. Aristotle is not believe in God, so that somehow is without God. But in the view of Thomas Aquinas, he's the Christian philosopher, so that he also influenced the idea of God inside.
Okay, I like that idea. Don't worry, that's my next question later. But I mean, I don't agree with what you just said, but we'll go there. But thank you for mentioning that. At least you made something clear for me. Where did you get, brother? Page 35 onwards, the problem of freedom in religious vocation discernment. So that's still part of chapter 2. You mentioned the expectation of other people, self-deception, compensation for dysfunctional families. Where did you get that? I understand that those are problems in the religious life, but did you just think about that or you got that from somewhere? I mean, those specific 5 points.
Yeah, this I encountered in in my experience of the life seminary. So I have friends they also have this kind of class where they lead their congregation.
So you just thought about these?
And when I see the reality of life, so that I
No. No survey, no, you just said, well, because seminary we experienced this, I see this, it's just you who got it. You didn't get these 5 from like one article or book?
no.
Oh, okay. That's a bit strange. Uh, because it's based on nothing, if you think about it. We could say, yes, dysfunctional families, but if you say it just by yourself, compared to if the CBCP says it. I mean, I just wanted you to see that. Alright? I agree with you. I mean, these are problems. But if the basis that it's just you who thought about it, I talked to my friends, and I mean, I could say it this way. It sounds funny. Right? I talked to my friends, and I thought these are the 5 problems of seminary education. You're a formator. You thought about that. That you've met hundreds of seminarians. That you see, because as formators, there are handbooks from the CBCP that says these are red flags for seminarians. If I'm not mistaken, Father, I think you agree with me that there's a book from the CBCP that says these are red flags for seminary formation. So I thought that's your basis for it. It would be nice to consider. I mean, these are problems, yes, you're correct. But it would be nice if you would base it on something like that, like what the church says. Now, if you come from a dysfunctional family, that's a bit of a warning sign. Seminarian A who comes from a broken family, seminarian B who comes I mean, if he has questionable sexual orientation, that's a bit of a red flag. Okay? The church said something like that. Just look into that, right? Don't worry, just look into it. Okay, now for the better part, chapter 3, on Aquinas. My concern now is, well, firstly, you talked a lot about Aquinas' life. I admire that. However, it's not that important. You could just put that on a footnote, as a footnote discussion, because what's more important is the rest that we talked about, B, C, B, and C. I found your discussion of his influences, Aristotle, Albert the Great, and Augustine, a bit short-changed, because it would have been better if you explained in that part how Aristotle's idea influenced Aquinas. I mean, you mentioned earlier already, and we're going to get to that. The idea of, Aristotle had this idea of the will and so on and so forth. And how does Aristotle contribute to Aquinas' philosophy? You just simply mentioned it.
Yeah, and let's see, yes, a short.
Like an introduction. It would have been better, brother, if you talk how Aristotle thought about this. And how does that differ from Aquinas? You mentioned that later on, but it would have been nice if in those three parts, for Aristotle, Albert the Great, and Augustine, you would already mention their contribution to Aquinas' philosophy. Did we get it?
Yes.
Okay, so it would have been better, brother, if you wrote it that way. And then, following that, okay, is the person who is free, according to Aquinas, a better person than... I was just wondering what is your opinion on this, because it will be the basis for my question for the next chapter. So it's the person who is free, according to Aquinas, a better person, and in what way is that person better than a person who is not free? Do you get the question? Okay, for Aquinas, because you have mentioned the idea of the liberal arbitrum. Okay, so I am free, let's say. Following your discussion of Aquinas' free will, I am free. Am I a better person than a person who is not free? And if yes, what makes me better?
Make me better is to live beautiful life and not get get the instruction in my daily life. Because when we have the free will, we have the ultimate goal, so that we have the goal so that we just go the way we go. If we don't have the free will, we don't have the direction where we go and what the way we will go to reach the end.
Okay, thank you, brother. So, do you have free will? Are you saying that?
Yes, sir.
Why?
I have free will because I choose to enter direction congregation. And
But whatever Father says, you have to follow.
yes, sir. Because this is the 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 action to pursue my ultimate goal. Because if I don't follow this one, if I don't follow the rule of the seminary, this is I violate with the will I choose to enter the seminary. Because before I know that if you want to join seminary, you have to be formed and to look after into the commission, the committer's step. If I violate this one, I will against with my view.
Okay, because brother, you began that there are a lot of people today who don't follow their rules. I hope you understand that, for example, I am engulfed in so much pleasures of the world. I willed that. I also willed that. I willed to engage in debauchery, in bacchanalia. You know, stuff I like to do that. I wanted to do that. So this is important because what makes your following Father, following the formators, you're wanting to enter the seminary different from another person who wants to engage in alcohol, in sex, in cigarettes, in vices. If they also wanted to do that, and you want to do this, why, according to your answer earlier, why are you better than them? What makes you freer than them? If both of you at the end of the day wanted to do that, that's just my big question there.
Can you
Repeat the question.
summarize this?
What makes you want to follow, you want to enter, I want to smoke, to drink, to have sex. We both want what we're doing. We both chose to do what we're doing. Why are you better than me? Because you just entered the seminary and I smoke a cigarette.
This is not the better life is not placed on the one aspect, but we also looking for the whole process. When until we get the ultimate end, we cannot judge when we
What is that ultimate end, brother? What is that ultimate end? You said there is an ultimate end. What is it?
the ultimate end of the human being is the get the happiness life and beautiful life.
Okay, so I am free only in relation to an end. And you say that. So isn't that theological? Because you entering the seminary, you are free in relation to God. And I think that is what Aquinas means with the free will. with free will. I am not free, it's not philosophical, it's highly theological. I am free because God created me to be free. And my freedom entails responsibility. That's why you're correct in saying you're freer than me because I'm engaged in vices. You're engaged ideally in virtue. You become free because you are obedient. I am not. So at the end of the day, freedom for Aquinas is not you wanting it, but you following.
Uh, this is not about our follow, but this is we choose to
Following God, brother. I mean, let me explain it this way. If you want to be a priest or a religious, and which I believe you want, hopefully you want, right? Hopefully you will. It's not just about you, right? It's about someone who calls you. And you are correct in saying, and I appreciate your title that um, that the notion of the will is an avenue to better understand religious vocation discernment. I would have appreciated better, brother, if you have mentioned that aspect of Aquinas' philosophy. Why is the human person free? It's not, we're not free because we have reason. Although you're correct in mentioning all of these things, but I think you've missed something, which is the creation account of Aquinas, which stands as his ontology. Why are you free? Not because of being fashioned according to the logos, which is Christ. Right here, Genesis 1:26. We are created in the image and likeness of God. So logos, Christ, and spiritus, spirit. So from Christ, from the logos, we have reason, and from the spirit, we have free will. That's why we are free as human beings, according to Aquinas. Because we are created in God's image and likeness. Not because I can think, but because I can believe. Earlier, because Aristotle talked about eudaimonia, he didn't believe in God, but Aquinas did. But for Aristotle, I am free in relation to that end. Eudaimonia, happiness. The end I am formed into. For Aquinas, I am free in relation to God. That's why for Aquinas, if you live a sinful life, you're not free. You live, and then we look at the Gospels, for example, Mary. My soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord. Because I'm a lowly servant. But from this day, all generations shall call me blessed. We pray that every day. Magnificat. We pray, right? Verse first, you get my point, the Canticle of Mary. He has cast down the mighty from the thrones. He has lifted up the lowly. And that's stark contrast. Filled the hungry with good things, the rich he sent away empty. We become free. I am free because of God's graciousness. That's just something, brother, I think you should have mentioned. That because this is nice, it's very rational, it's very clear what you're trying to say. But I am called by God, and I become a good priest, I become a good religious because of that calling. Because I am obedient to that calling. You get my point, brother? That's my first question earlier. Why do you mention the evangelical counsels? With Aquinas. Because for Aquinas, it was already clear. And then just one last bit. Okay, in page 93, the fourth chapter answers this main question. In the view of this notion, Aquinas, the religious vocation discernment has its foundation in the religious experience, wherein a person has an encounter that leads him to the realm of the divine, that calls him forth to a certain reality of life. Aquinas' way of achieving the genuine vocation is through his own life, after the process of listening to the call. See, listening to the call of the rational and intellectual appetite. But it's not just my appetite calling me. Is it? Right? It's not, your mind did not tell you to enter the seminary. You felt it. You said religious experience, right? You encountered God to some extent. This notion will help the discerners understand and accept who they are and take responsibilities for their choices in life. Through free will and responsibility of oneself, but let that person overcomes the attachments from the world, fix and tug him back from what he truly is. So, I hope you understand my point, okay? It's very rational, your explanation, but it's a bit incomplete because there's someone who calls us. And a religious vocation is responding to that call. And if we talk about, again, Aquinas' free will, it's being obedient to that. Take your time, Papa. It's not really a question in this lesson. It's more of a platform. Okay? Okay, take your time.
Thank you very much, Sir Anton, for those questions and some clarifications. On my part, I will be giving you this one. There are grammatical corrections that needs to be done. Some sentences that has to be ironed out. I put some marks to it. But I find your thesis clear. I know you have the ideas here. They just need to be articulated better and some little improvements. Congratulations. My question for you is that since you're talking about will in the vocation, religious vocation discernment, how would you reconcile your free will? We're talking about in the context of Aquinas. Free will and God's word. Would it be possible that you are rejecting God's word? Or is it really freedom? Since we're talking about responding to the call, and you're saying about free will, how would you reconcile that?
Yes. At the beginning, God was planned us to become what we are. First, God not choose we must to be like this, but He offers to us the alternative option. So that we the one who choose the specific life for each one of us, but not the one who choose specific life, but we will choose one among the alternative option from God. You see, we have free will to choose among alternative options.
We have the freedom to choose.
We have freedom to choose one specific life among the several alternative options of life.
Who is giving the alternative options?
God, the one who offers us the alternative option. We are the one who choose. We choose about. We are the one who choose that kind of life. Not God who choose for us. Not the one who should prepare for us, but we are the one who choose this one.
So meaning, are you saying that God gives you several options and then you just choose what you want?
We choose what we are really want as we are.
Because you said here that a person experiences, says here, I think that's also the same point on page 93, because this is your main answer to the main question. In the view of this notion, Aquinas, the religious vocation discernment has its foundation in the religious experience, wherein a person has an encounter that leads him to the realm of the divine. A person has a religious experience. Okay? When a person has a religious experience, what happens now to his free will?
Because here he can choose. He is the one who choose that life. If they don't want to choose, it's also their way of life.
By the way, how do you understand religious experience?
I believe experience here is the way we life, the way we live our life.
The way we live our life, is that what we really mean by religious experience? When a person has a religious experience, what happens in the mind and in the heart of that person when he encounters, when he has that religious experience?
In the part of heart, that person will have the urge or the fire in the or feeling can feel that experience.
Okay, and usually, what, how does his will respond to that religious experience? His free will.
Because he the one who choose so that he exercise the free will, he choose what he truly desire.
So are you saying that becoming, meaning that becoming a religious depends only on the choice of the person? Because you're saying that when you have a religious experience, then it's up to you to choose depending on you. Is that what you are saying? That discernment of a religious vocation is really just up to your own choice?
Because we are the one who choose so that we are the one who subject to choose to be a religious life. But before we choose, God give us the feeling of religious state first, so that we can find out if we don't choose the one we are really urge in our heart and mind, so that we cannot get the free will and the way we follow the one we desire is the free will, but if we don't choose the one we desire, this is not free will.
Like for example, okay, I'll give a certain situation. Do you want to be a clerician?
Yes, no.
You want, no? Okay. What if in your moments of prayer, now you want to be a clerician? What if while you were praying, you had a religious experience, and that religious experience gives you is telling you, no, that my plan for you is to get married. If you want to be a clinician, he said, but what if in that religious experience, it's not what you are thinking right now that you want?
If I have that encounter, that situation, I will not only based on the contemporary experience, but I have to experience for a long period of time, so I can be sure that is the truly which experience for me or something like that.
Okay, so what if, okay, you finished here, you went to the postulancy, you went to the novitiate, you even studied theology already, and when you were already in your fourth year of theology, that experience stays the same. That you have that experience of God telling you, no, my plan for you is not to be a clinician, but to get married.
If I still have that experience for a long time periods, and I don't feel satisfaction with the life I'm in now, so that I have to change my will to that I will, so that I can get the beautiful life. But if I still stay in my traditional formation, without the happiness and meaningful life. That is not my ultimate aim of this kind of life.
Okay. I just want to point out something there that in terms of vocational discernment, the very important here is the foundation of the religious experience. That when in our decision making, when we decide, um, God, God enables our will to choose, enables us to choose His plan. So it's not only what you want, but our will is enabled by God to also choose uh, the plan that God wants you to have in your life. So what I'm trying to say that God's will and your real vocation in life are not separate. They are, they are heading towards one end. That's why in the vocational discernment, uh, the will religious experience is really a foundation because without the religious experience of in the religious life, the person cannot really be truly happy and really give himself. So it's not only what you want, but your will united with the will of God. Do you still have other questions or Anton? Okay, so thank you very much, Doug, for your presentation. So we will be giving you the comments and other things that you can improve your thesis. So thank you very much. We would like to invite everyone also to leave the room for a while, except for Ms. Coordinator. discussion on your thesis. Congratulations, your thesis is approved with minor revisions. You don't want to lose this.
Đủ con rồi. Bánh để dưới kia rồi. Tí ở đây tí đưa lên thôi. Không sửa bài hết. Thì họ thực ra cắt xa con hết rồi. Tí nữa họ xuống mới đặt ra thôi. Mỗi ông ăn thôi.